we see 80-year-old grandmothers ascending these cliffs barefoot, their faces a mask of absolute serenity as they whisper prayers into the howling wind. We watch mothers with infants strapped tightly to their backs, their thin but iron-strong hands gripping the stone like talons, climbing with a calm that borders on the supernatural. Why do they risk everything? For the people of Tigray, this climb is a physical form of penance, a belief that the more the muscles ache and the more the soul trembles, the cleaner one becomes before entering the presence of the Almighty. This natural fortress was not chosen by accident. In the 5th century, these cliffs served as a biological vault to protect the faithful from brutal religious persecution. As we cross the narrow threshold into the cool darkness of the cavern, the world of fear vanishes. Our eyes adjust to reveal a miracle. Frescoes of indigo, saffron, and deep crimson dancing across the stone ceiling, their colors as vivid as if the brush had left them only yesterday. For 1,500 years, the absence of sunlight and the desert's parched breath have mummified these masterpieces, preserving the holy faces that gaze back at us with wide, eternal eyes. Inside this silent sanctuary, priests turn the pages of ancient goatskin Bibles, written in ink, refined from crushed minerals and desert flowers. Standing at the cave's mouth, looking down at a valley that now resembles a discarded toy, one realizes that this isolation is a choice, a total detachment from the noise of the modern world. The people of Ethiopia have used their very blood and courage to hoist their faith to these impossible heights. But they understood that for such a spirit to live forever, it needed a vessel more enduring than even the hardest stone. To ensure their legacy would survive the passage of souls, they turned to a power that could materialize wisdom itself, the sacred art of the written word. The silence of Tigray's highlands is not empty. It carries the weight of 15 centuries. While the people used physical courage to scale cliffs, they knew the spirit is a flickering flame, unless anchored to something more enduring than bone. To ensure their legacy survived the fall of empires, they turned to the sacred alchemy of the Giz script. In a continent where history was often rewritten by the ink of colonizers, Ethiopia stands as a defiant monolith. It is the only African nation to possess an indigenous writing system, a living fossil that serves as a symbol of an independent soul. While others adopted foreign alphabets, Ethiopians continued to carve their ancestors' language into the fabric of reality. To look upon Agere's manuscript is to see over 200 intricate characters that resemble symbols from a lost tomb, yet remain vibrant and breathing in the Holy Liturgy today. The bravery here lies in the infinite patience of the monks, the gatekeepers of knowledge. These sacred pages ignore the fragility of modern paper. They are born from eternal parchment, animal hides scraped and stretched under a parching sun to mock the passage of time. The ink itself is a deep alchemy of the earth, crimsons distilled from desert flowers, and obsidian blacks birthed from ancient minerals. This ink does not simply sit upon the parchment, it eats into the skin, binding the word to the hide, so that even after centuries, the script remains as vivid as the day it was set down. These are the illuminated manuscripts, guarded by paintings of saints with wide, penetrating eyes that witness the state of the reader's soul. For these bravest souls, knowledge is a holy trust, not a museum relic. These books live in the trembling hands of priests, ensuring the ancient pulse of Ge'ez remains the heartbeat of the present. Intellectual mastery has shielded the Ethiopian soul, but as we leave these quiet sanctuaries, we must face the raw, unyielding power of the heights, where survival moves from the parchment to the treacherous peaks of the Simeon Mountains. Beyond the silent ink of the ancient scrolls and the vertical sanctuaries of Tigray, we ascend to a realm where the earth itself seems to gasp for air. Welcome to the Simeon Mountains, the undisputed roof of Africa. This is no mere mountain range, it is a jagged, vertical masterpiece forged by millions of years of volcanic fury, creating a labyrinth of plateaus and precipices that plunge thousands of meters into the void. Here we stand between 3,000 and 4,500 meters, roughly 9,842 to 14,763 feet above the world, where every movement is a heavy tax paid in oxygen, and the atmosphere is so thin it feels as though the wind stripping the very breath from your lungs. In this theater of extremes, survival is not a given, it is an art form. The climate here is a mercurial beast, shifting from a searing, sun-scorched brilliance by day to a bone-chilling frost that plunges below 0 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the moment the sun retreats. Yet, in this kingdom of clouds, we encounter the true philosophers of the cliff, the gelada monkeys. These are the world's last grass-eating primates, a unique evolutionary defiance that allows them to thrive on the barren, high-altitude meadows. But their true bravery is revealed at dusk. To evade the stealthy leopard, their only predator, they perform a nightly ritual of madness. Descending the sheer, vertical walls to sleep on tiny, finger-width ledges over abysses hundreds of meters deep. One slip in their slumber would be fatal, yet they choose this vertical sanctuary as their only guarantee of a tomorrow. But what of the humans who call these mists home? Look closely at the emerald patches clinging to the dizzying slopes. Here, the bravest souls practice a form of agriculture on the clouds. Without the aid of machines, they guide wooden plows pulled by weary oxen, turning the meager soil to sow teff, the smallest grain on the planet. A single seed of teff is no larger than a speck of dust, yet it is a nutritional titan, packed with more iron and protein than almost any other cereal. This tiny grain is the backbone of a nation of champions. It is this diet, combined with a lifetime of breathing the thin, punishing air of the peaks, that has gifted the Ethiopians a biological superpower. Hearts and lungs with an unparalleled capacity to transport oxygen. It is no coincidence that this rugged terrain has birthed the greatest marathon runners the world has ever seen, men and women whose endurance was forged in the forge of the Simeon Heights. On these frozen summits, life has learned to lean against the stone to endure the cold. But Ethiopia is a land of impossible contradictions. While we have shivered under the mountain mists, a different kind of trial awaits just beyond the horizon, a place where the frost is replaced by a liquid fire, and the roof of Africa gives way to its scorching, sulfurous basement. We leave the biting winds of the Simeon to descend into a realm of inferno, the Danakil Depression, where the very crust of the earth begins to tear apart. We leave the biting winds of the Simeon Peaks behind, plunging over 100 meters below the pulse of the ocean into a realm where the world, as we know it, ceases to evolve and begins to disintegrate. Welcome to the Danakil Depression, the planetary basement. Here, the Earth's crust is stretched so thin that the molten heart of our world beats just beneath the soles of our feet. It is a place where three tectonic plates are violently tearing away from one another, creating a landscape so hostile that it mirrors the surface of a distant, dying star rather than our own green Earth. Can you feel the sun? Here, it is not a source of life, but a predatory force. Temperatures routinely shatter the 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit mark, and the air we breathe is no longer a gift of oxygen, but a heavy, suffocating shroud of salt and sulfur. We wander into Dalol, a fever dream of geology. It is a psychedelic inferno, where neon yellow acid ponds and emerald green pools shimmer with a lethal, toxic beauty. These pillars of salt and geysers of potash are not built for the weak. They are the jagged teeth of the abyss, warning all who enter that nature here is at its most volatile. Then, the horizon begins to glow with a different kind of hunger. We approach Erta Ale, the smoking mountain. To reach its rim, we must trek across fields of razor-sharp volcanic glass, black, frozen waves of a stone ocean. At its summit, we find one of the world's only permanent lava lakes. To peer into this caldera at night is to witness the blood of the earth cupping its own fury. The lava churns in a violent crimson dance, a gateway to the Earth's core that whispers of the chaos from which our universe was born. But even in this literal hell on Earth, we find the bravest souls. The Afar people do not merely survive here, they have turned the Danakil into their home. In the blinding glare of the salt pans, where the heat is enough to melt the resolve of any ordinary traveler, the Afar work with nothing but wooden axes and their bare, calloused hands. They are the harvesters of white gold, slabs of salt hewn directly from the parched floor of a prehistoric sea. Watch the silent majesty of the camel caravans as they stretch toward the horizon, hundreds of beasts laden with salt, moving through the shimmering heat haze with a rhythmic, ancient grace. For the Afar, this is not a death trap. It is a sacred gift from a land they refuse to abandon. Their courage is not found in fighting the heat, but in harmonizing with it, proving that the human spirit can thrive even when the world itself is on fire. At Danakil, we have witnessed a war against geology and temperature. But as we leave this scorched basement to journey into the lush, hidden corridors of the south, we find a different kind of resilience. It is a survival not of the body against the heat, but of the identity against the clock. We depart the liquid fires of the Danakil for the ancient cradle of the Omo Valley, where the bravest souls fight a new battle. The fierce resistance to remain primitive in a world that has forgotten how to be elemental. We leave the scorched basement of the world, following the wind south into the emerald embrace of the Omo Valley. This is a living museum of human origins, a sanctuary where evolution has seemingly paused to catch its breath. Here, dozens of tribes exist in voluntary isolation, choosing the ancient rhythm of the Omo River over the gears of the 21st century. In the dust-choked plains, we witness the Hema people and a trial that would freeze the blood of a modern man, the bull-jumping ceremony. A young man stands barefoot before a line of restless bulls. To claim his place among men, he must leap upon their broad backs and run across this living bridge of hides 4 times. Nearby, Hema women carry their own testament-raised scars on their skin that are not marks of cruelty, but evidence of fierce loyalty. In this valley, pain is the ink used to write the story of one's devotion. Further into the wild, we encounter the Mercy, where beauty is defined by the weight of the clay. The women wear large lip plates, symbols of maturity and immense personal pride. They treat the human body as a living canvas, using a wordless language of charcoal ash and crushed flower petals to paint intricate patterns upon their skin. In a world of digital footprints, these strokes are silent expressions of an identity that refuses to be erased. Why do they cling to these ways? Because they understand a truth we have lost. To surrender your customs is to let your soul vanish into the grey fog of the modern age. Their resistance is a masterclass in cultural bravery, a fierce determination to remain elemental in an era of imitation. But the Ethiopian spirit does not only find expression in the transient beauty of mud and skin. When their faith reached a dimension of absolute grandeur, they moved beyond the clay and began to use the heavy bite of the chisel to carve an entire civilization into the eternal bedrock of the earth. Leaving the ephemeral beauty of the south, we travel to a place where eternity was hammered into the very marrow of the earth, Lalibela. Here, architecture is not an act of addition, but a sacred subtraction. Imagine the audacity of the medieval soul, to not build a cathedral up toward the clouds, but to carve it down into the dark, unyielding, volcanic tuff. "11 monolithic churches were birthed from the bedrock, as if the mountains themselves had been hollowed by the breath of God. As we stand at the edge of the pit, looking down at the Church of St. George, a perfect cruciform cross etched into the ground, the scale of the sacrifice becomes breathless. These were not built with cranes or mortar, but with the rhythmic, bone-weary strike of chisels against stone that refuses to forgive a single mistake. A single errant blow did not mean a cracked brick. It meant the death of a masterpiece, for you cannot rebuild what is part of the living earth. Legend whispers that while men toiled by day, angels descended in the silver light of the moon to double the work, their celestial hands moving in a dance of stone and starlight. We descend into the cooling shadows, entering a labyrinth of narrow, subterranean tunnels, dark corridors of repentance, where the air is thick with ancient incense. Here, the bravest souls are those who spend their lives in the belly of the rock, seeking a light that the sun cannot provide. But the mystery of stone reaches its pinnacle in Aksum, where the ultimate secret is guarded, the Ark of the Covenant. Here, the burden of the sacred falls upon a single man, the guardian. He is a bravest soul of a different kind. Once chosen, he enters the chapel and never leaves its gates until his heart ceases to beat. He dies to the world so that the secret may live. Can we even fathom such a commitment? To live in a world of shadows, guarding a relic of fire and law, while the centuries pass like falling leaves. This is not a museum of the dead. It is a living house of faith, where the stones pulse with the prayers of centuries. But even this heavy silence cannot contain the spirit of Ethiopia forever. For when the great festivals arrive, the stillness of the rock must give way to the roar of the crowd. As the heavy, stone-cold silence of the rock-hewn sanctuaries fades into the mist, a new power begins to stir, not the solitary whisper of a monk, but the thunderous roar of an entire nation. In Ethiopia, faith is more than just a private penance. It is a tidal wave of collective spirit that can shake the very foundations of the earth. We move now from the caves to the squares, where the quiet devotion of the individual transforms into the overwhelming energy of the masses. Welcome to Timkat, the Feast of Epiphany, where the city is no longer a collection of buildings, but a living, breathing river of white. Have you ever seen a sea of 10,000 souls draped in the pristine, snowy folds of the Netela cloth? From above, the ancient streets vanish beneath this ivory shroud, punctuated only by the blinding kaleidoscope of silken, gold-embroidered umbrellas held aloft by the high priests. Can you hear the rhythmic, deep-bellied boom of the kibero drums? It is a heartbeat that synchronizes every chest in the crowd. As the priests hurl holy water into the throngs with a joyful, chaotic frenzy, every boundary of status and wealth is dissolved. In this soaking, ecstatic moment, they are unified not just by religion, but by a shared history that has refused to be erased. Yet, the ultimate testament to the courage of this nation lies in the east, within the sun-bleached, ancient walls of Harar. Here, we witness a ritual that defies every instinct of human survival. As night cloaks the city, a man sits in the dust, calling out to the shadows. Out of the darkness, the world's most feared scavengers emerge, wild hyenas. In any other corner of the globe, this is a scene of carnage, but in Harar, it is a masterclass in conquering fear with love. We watch, paralyzed by the sight of a man feeding these predators with his bare hands, or even holding a scrap of meat in his mouth, inviting the snap of bone-crushing jaws just inches from his own eyes. This is not a circus act. It is the pinnacle of human confidence. By choosing to turn a primal enemy into a companion, the people of Harar demonstrate a soul so powerful it has no need for weapons. This spine of community and tolerance is what has kept Ethiopia upright through the storms of time. But this nation does not only live in the echoes of the past. It is a spirit that is now leaping toward a new horizon, where the ancient traditions of the highlands are meeting the rapid, electric pulse of a futuristic age. The strength of the community at the festival gates and the fearlessness on the streets of Harar are the backbone of this country. But Ethiopia is now preparing for its next great leap. bringing this thousand-year-old identity into the heart of a modern metropolis that is changing every second. The collective roar of the festivals and the fearless peace of Hurrah form the backbone of this nation. Yet Ethiopia is now leaping toward a horizon where silicon meets stone. In Addis Ababa, the political capital of Africa, the city breathes through two lungs. At M. One ancient and one born of the future. Here, the bravest souls of a new generation navigate a world where the 21st century lives alongside the past in a dizzying dance. Look down at the urban arteries, where East Africa's most advanced light rail glides like a silver needle through the city's heart. In a striking contrast, a caravan of donkeys plods along the pavement directly beneath the elevated tracks. This is not a failure of progress, but the parallel existence of two timelines, proving that, in Ethiopia, no one is ever truly left behind by time. Beneath the glass towers, the vibrant pulse of Gen Z defines the new frontier. These young pioneers navigate high-speed networks with the latest smartphones. Yet, as they pass the weathered walls of an old church, they pause to bow their heads. Their connectivity to the divine remains more stable than any satellite signal. In this era, the chisel has evolved into the laser. Technicians now use 3D scanning to digitalize the miracles of Lalibela, creating virtual sanctuaries to shield ancestral wisdom from the ravages of nature. Software engineers are weaving the gaze script into the very code of artificial intelligence, ensuring the language of kings becomes the language of the machine. This modern bravery is rooted in an unconquered self-reliance. From building their own colossal railways to raising the Grand Renaissance Dam, Ethiopia refuses to wait for others to craft its destiny. They remain stubbornly unique, clinging to their own calendar and their own clock. Modernity may change the face of the streets, but it cannot touch the stillness of the soul. To understand the true heart of this nation, we must leave the roar of the engines and find our way to the ritual that defines every Ethiopian home, where time finally slows down beside a sacred, steaming cup. The electric surge of the modern city and the liquid fire of the Danakil are but fleeting shadows, compared to the profound stillness we find now. We have reached the final sanctuary of our journey, the ancestral home of the bean that conquered the world. This is not a product of an industrial plantation. This is the birthplace of coffee, where every bean is a concentrate of Ethiopian sun, wind, and red earth. In an Ethiopia that moves with the speed of high-speed rail, the coffee ceremony remains a defiant monument to the art of the slow. Watch the ritual unfold in a veil of incense smoke. The beans are not merely cooked, they are transformed over glowing embers, then pulverized by hand in a wooden mortar. The sound is a rhythmic prayer. Then comes the jebana, the iconic, round-bellied clay pot, where the essence of the highlands is brewed. As the dark nectar is poured from a height into the small, handleless Sini cups, it creates a velvet foam that carries the scent of eternity. Do not rush. To drink here is to honor the rule of three. First is Abel, the first cup strong and unyielding. Then follows Tona, the second elegant and contemplative. And finally, Baraka, the cup of blessing. To finish all three is to offer the ultimate respect to your host. It is a silent contract of peace that has bound these communities together for millennia. But the true soul of this nation is best tasted through Gursha. Around a communal tray of tangy injera, we witness the most intimate act of the bravest souls. It is the act of feeding one another. When a friend cupped a morsel and places it directly into your mouth, they are whispering a truth older than the mountains. I value you more than I value myself. In this moment of shared vulnerability, all arguments vanish, and only the glue of human connection remains. We have seen them all now, the souls who climb vertical cliffs for a prayer in Tigray. The monks who preserve the gaze script on eternal goatskin. The farmers who plough the clouds on the Simeon peaks. The Afar, who survive the furnace of Danakil, and the tribes of Omo, who wear their identity in scars and clay. Ethiopia is a land of impossible extremes, not just in its geography, but in the very spirit of its people. They are brave on the cliffs, persistent on the mountains, and enduring in the inferno. Yet here, beside the steaming Jabina, we find their greatest strength, their gentleness. Ethiopia does not ask you to understand her immediately. She invites you to sit down, savor a cup of coffee, and feel your heart beat in harmony with the ancient pulse of this land.